longer than anticipated. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Firas and Dr. Aqil for organizing this event, much needed space and dialogue in our community. And to you all, dear respected brothers and sisters, especially our professors in the room, Dr. Wajih, also our teacher, and Haji Nawar Ahmadi, who I consider her a mentor and a role model. And she had a great influence on me, shaping me as an educator. So it's a pleasure to be among all of you. Thank you, Doctor, for explaining that evolution is not a series, and rather it is a tree that resolves the issue of the new discoveries. They are never in contradiction to evolution, they always enhance the understanding of this tree. Dr. Shadi, I've always been interested in understanding your thoughts. I see your TikToks, but they're short. And now it was an opportunity to take an idea at that. Dr. Firas, thank you for your presentation. I want to start where Haji actually started or ended, where science describes processes and faith addresses purpose and meaning. I think this statement all of us have emphasized today and we agreed on. And trust that faith is not fragile. That's a statement that Haji made that is very, very important. That we should stop treating our faith as if it is fragile. And this seminar is a proof of that, that we are confident enough to discuss subjects that might be considered in some places or in some times controversial. So I want to also thank you for starting with the recognition what long has been recognized by the scientific community, something we have in common in this room, that all of us believes that evolution is a scientific fact, that we all believe in the theory of evolution, and that's a relief. I know there is differences in understanding evolution, but we all recognize it as a scientific fact, similar to the 98% of the biomedical scientists of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. And according to Pew Research, also similar to 99% of PhD scientists and similar to 99% of active research scientists. The problem that we have is not in this room. The problem that we have that in American society, and it has improved drastically from 57% in the 50s to about 63% today. 2 out of 3 now recognize the theory of evolution, but 1 out of 3, contrary to the scientific consensus, they still do not believe in the theory of evolution. This is where education plays a role and the importance of education. And I really appreciate the organizers of having Ms. Hamadi, Dr. Hamadi, starting this as an educator, because it really boils down to the public perception of science, the education about science. If we were invited here, to discuss the theory of evolution, it would have been a different matter, but I'm glad that we are not. Third, whether evolution is part of God's plan or not, that I want to give this disclaimer, that has no effect on God. Actually, religious people keep getting their religion mixed up sometimes, trying to insert God forcefully into some aspects that it's not necessarily there is a need to mix it with science. So I will be discussing a little bit a different point of view within. I mean, we agree on 99% of what was presented today, but I appreciate the diversity in the panel that Dr. Firas and Dr. Aqil have created by inviting also this point of view. The point of view is God is not just powerful. God is Al-Hakim. He's perfectly wise. This is the concept of God as presented in most of our Abrahamic religions. or all of our Abrahamic religions and most of religions in the world. He is all knowing. He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, boundlessly merciful. He is Al-Adl, perfectly just. These are claims about the nature of the reality of God. So tonight, I want to ask a simple question. Does the process we call evolution look like the work of a merciful, wise, all-knowing planner, or does it look like something else entirely? And to answer this, we must first understand what evolution is. And I understand that in this room, all of us, we understand the theory of evolution. But there is something that makes it really closer to us, which is the idea that evolution is not a guided journey toward perfection. It's not a plan with a goal in mind. Evolution works through random genetic mutations, followed by brutal filtering. Mistakes happen randomly. Most of those mistakes fail. Failure usually means pain, disability, or death. Whatever survives long enough to reproduce continues. That is the engine, not wisdom, not foresight, not mercy, survival at any cost. Evolution is blind and cruel. There is no emotions in evolution. Even extreme pain, if it doesn't kill enough to eradicate enough of the species from the gene pool, then it is okay with evolution. Simple example, our birth, a baby coming out of a womb of a mother, is an incredibly painful process. It actually defines pain. When a doctor asks you a question, how much pain do you feel? From 1 to 10, 10 is giving birth pain. And why? Because such a large head has to exit from such a small place. This historically has caused, usually 50% of the time, has caused bleeding, death of the mother, or death of the child. But Hassan, لو سمحت مي my mouth is dry.
It's painful.
I'm sorry, I'm a little sick, fam. You know, the longevity of women historically has been an average of 18 years old because of the extreme percentage of death of women during birth. So when humans want a certain trait, we practice evolution in breeding. When we want a bigger tomato, we want a sweeter date, we want a faster horse, we want more milk from a cow. We do not rely on randomness. We select intentionally. We choose which plants to cross-pollinate. We choose which animals are allowed to reproduce. We remove undesirable traits deliberately and preserve desirable ones knowingly. This process is called selective breeding. It works. Most of our vegetables and fruits today, they have bred over centuries. They look nothing like their wild ancestors. It works because there's intelligence, intention, and foresight behind it. This is how intelligence behind evolution look like, because we practice it. Even then, it is slow, limited, and often produces suffering. Many animals bred by humans develop health problems, deformities, or shorten lives because we push traits without fully understanding the consequences. Cows, sometimes their bones break because we've bred them to be so fat. Evolution is similar in one narrow sense. Traits that help survival and reproduction tend to persist, and traits that do not tend to disappear. But here's the crucial difference. In human breeding, there is a selector who knows what they want, a goal in mind, moral limits, however imperfect, the ability to stop when harm becomes obvious. In evolution, there is no selector with awareness. Nature does not know what it's doing. It's blind. There is no goal, no foresight, no concern for well being. Mutations occur blindly, most are harmful or useless. 99% of species got انقرضوا. Those that kill before reproduction are eliminated, not because they are bad, but because they failed. To put it bluntly, evolution is like selective breeding without a breeder. Imagine a farmer who releases thousands of animals into the wild, introduces random genetic damage into each generation, watches most of them suffer or die, and then keeps going for millions of years without learning, correcting, or stopping. We would not call that farming. We would call that negligence. So, for these reasons, inefficiency on a cosmic scale, evolution is staggeringly inefficient. 99% of all species that ever existed are extinct. Some of the skulls that were discovered, they're of other hominids. We are part of 11 hominid species. We're Homo sapiens. There's other hominids. The one that we're most familiar with is the Neanderthals, who actually we coexisted with for a while. And our DNA contains 1 to 5% Neanderthal DNA. If an engineer destroys 99% of their prototypes, we would not call them brilliant. We would call them reckless, possibly criminal. Entire species lived, struggled, suffered, and vanished, not because they were evil, not because they chose wrongly, but because random mutations failed to keep up with changing conditions. This is not refinement, this is just mass disposal. Would an all knowing God need billions of years of failed experiments to create us? Would divine wisdom require endless trial and error? Or would such a God already know the outcome and therefore not need the unnecessary suffering? Let us speak plainly about the cruelty of evolution. In evolution, suffering is not a side effect, it is essential. Predators must tear prey apart alive. Parasites must eat hosts from the inside. Millions of offspring must be born only to starve, suffocate, or be eaten. Sea turtles. Hundreds of eggs hatch. Most babies never reach the ocean. Birds tear them apart. Crabs rip them open. Fish swallow them whole. This is not punishment. This is just the system. Evolution produces organisms whose entire survival strategy is maximal harm. For example, parasites that blind children or eat eyes from the inside, organisms that hijack brains and alter behavior, wasps that paralyze prey, lay eggs inside them as larvae can eat them alive. These are not anomalies, these are successful evolutionary strategies. This is considered in evolution language success. If suffering works, evolution keeps it. Evolution is the worst way of creating something. Consider animals born with malformed limbs, unable to walk, slowly dying of hunger. Cancers that arise from random mutations, the same mechanism that supposedly creates progress, also creates these cancers. If this were a human designed system, we would shut it down immediately. We would not say this is wise, and we would not say this is merciful, and we would not say that there is a purpose behind it. Trial and error is not divine intelligence. Evolution depends on blind trial and error. Blind means no foresight. Error means failure is expected. In Islam, God is not blind. The God I believe in does not guess, does not experiment. The Quran repeatedly describes creation as measured, intentional, and precise. Trial and error is what we do when we don't know what will work. Why would an all knowing God need to try millions of versions of eyes before arriving at the one that sees? Why would a wise creator produce creatures with backward retinas, shared breathing and eating tubes that cause choking, or spines that collapse under upright posture, all while non-evolutionary leftovers. These are not signs of wisdom, and that's why I doubt the question of today's seminar is evolution part of God's plan? A moral problem also that suffering has a purpose. And this is what I mean is that this is a theological claim that suffering has a purpose. But when we try to bend science into our theology, then this is where the conflict starts. If we keep science where it is and we keep faith where it is, faith brings us why? Brings us the wisdom, the purpose, and the meaning of our life. While science explains to us the mechanisms, like Doctor has described, it's just a process of what's going on. We don't need, we might have questions. We might have questions. Is God behind this process? What is the meaning behind this process? But we don't need to always answer the questions that we have. I like how one of our speakers ended with a question. I think Dr. Firas. He ended with a question. I love ending with a question because a question is a path for wisdom and it is a path for increasing our knowledge. And it is what keeps us connected to God, is that this area of al-majhul, this area that this unknown, that we always are seeking something higher for our guidance. Evolution does not assign meaning to suffering, it only rewards the survival. I'm going to skip to save you some time. Uh, so when we say ليس كمثله شيء, no faithful person would accept a ruler who governs in such a cruel way or allows such a cruelty to happen. Sometimes we can bring wisdom to some levels of cruelty, small levels of cruelty, they carry with them lessons. But to the level of wastefulness and the large scale of cruelty that evolution is characterized with, we cannot attach it to God. Waste, all of you have studied and understand the amount of waste in our DNA and the brain wiring and the number of connections and the millions of eggs that a frog lays that all, but, if they're lucky, one out of millions become the next progeny. There is a lot of wastefulness and a lot that's not necessary. A frog is not a large part of our wisdom. And it is to look at evolution, which is 13, the Dr. Farasi said 400 million, but the more accurate figure is 3.5 to 3.8 billion years, where the first cell, prokaryotic cell, has, there's evidence of its existence on Earth. So 3.8 billion years of life for us to exist at the last 250,000, and the only species that have the consciousness of its existence, it is really challenging to describe this method as something that is from God. So that's why I argue that evolution, I cannot relate the process of evolution to God. God brings the order, the love, the mercy, the kindness, the humanity in us, and that is opposite to the harshness that we suffer because of evolution. I'm taking my glasses off and on because of evolution. Um, to end like where we started and where all of us have agreed that faith is necessary to answer our whys. There is no science never tackled the whys. If you ask science, what's the purpose? What's your purpose in life? Nothing. What's the purpose of this existence? They have no answer. But spirituality, religion does. And science has discovered the house, and we've built our life and universe around the house. But it is important to understand science as is, and to understand our faith as is, and not create a conflict where there is no conflict, because that hurts the learning process and the education process. And I love what Ms. Hamadi mentioned as the instructions to teachers that this is the processes of science and faith answers the why question. Uh, that's how we answered the students. I wish that not only students but the whole society is instructed with the same instructions that we give to the teachers. Thank you.
So keep